Okay, we are on. Welcome to the live stream midnight update for the missing submarine Titan. Um, Missing submersible, I should say. Uh, I have some more information that I just found out, and hopefully, I set this up right with the live stream running this time and not blocked off, which was a real dumb mistake I did before. If Now the question is, how many people are up at this hour, the midnight, um, live chat? So this is what's going on. The latest update, and in case you're watching this, it is now Thursday morning, technically speaking, a little after 12 a.m. At this time, I have some breaking information, some breaking news. And I'm going to keep an eye out to see if there's any discussion or people around at this hour. Of course, let me start by saying there's only one thing that may, in fact, be harder to find, harder to locate than the sub, and that would be um, this live stream here or my video updates on this topic. Unless you're like a direct subscriber to my channel, it seems to me like these things are, for whatever reason, they're making it like unsearchable, unable to even locate it. Because I tried to bring up my video for one of my friends today, and I couldn't get it to come up. I searched even with the name of my channel, and it was like blocked. It would not come up. I don't know why they do that, because I'm trying to find information. I like to see as much information as I can find. And most of the stuff, when I do a search, it's outdated stuff. It's not, I don't know why it's not in chronological order. And at least on my Roku, I can't seem to adjust it. There might be a way to do it. If anybody knows, leave it in the comment. If anyone knows how to adjust it so that you can find the latest videos on a particular subject and not have it be selected by quote unquote the man or the system, um because that would be, I wonder if there's a way to do it. I mean, there's so many tricks with this technology here with YouTube and stuff. Maybe I just don't know how to do it. So let me know if you guys know how to do this. What I always want to search for, I'm looking at stuff online, I want to find the newest information. I'm not, especially with new stuff, I'm not interested in the old information. And my videos here, my updates are one of the few updates or videos on here with like technical information and stuff that's more relevant about the missing sub than what you would get from like a mainstream media type cookie cutter report. They're not going to go into too much of the technical details about it. So here's the latest update. I'm waiting for any information coming out here on the feeds. 12:07 a.m. There are two ships that are getting very close to meeting up. Um, they're kind of on a course to possibly meet up for collaboration and or expertise from maybe experts on one of the ships helping out the other ship. Maybe one of the ships has particular equipment on board that they need, such as the cable system to lower down into the depths of the ocean. Okay, these two ships, one of them is French, and Atalante, it's called. Okay, hey, welcome. Welcome to the discussion. Yeah, well, it's not looking it's not looking super good at the moment, but we got to see how this plays out. They still have the possibility of doing something here. And I was just saying there are two ships that seem to be convening and a few more rescue craft in the area. They are getting, they may do a group effort, and some of the ships might have special equipment on board. Um, let's see. Yeah, yeah. I was thinking the same thing, that this story is so epic and so extreme. This, I'll tell you one thing, the people on board are going to be, um, they're going to be famous, whether they're found living or they have unfortunately passed away. They are going to be famous, and the I'm sure are gonna they would make a movie about this kind of drama. You'd be on the edge of your seat. Um, so we have a couple of rescue ships convening. French Atalante, if I'm not butchering that, the Horizon Arctic, and a few more are near the site. Now, I heard something about they're approximately 40 miles from the Titanic wreck. So these ships, maybe they're meeting up and then they're going to head over to the wreck together, or maybe start searching the area as they head toward the wreck. Um, I did hear about the noises they've been detecting with sonar, and the rescuers have honed in right over that area. The unfortunate news, so that I've deciphered, the Navy submersible that can actually go way down to the Titanic site. I heard that that thing is up by Newfoundland, St. John's, and they think it will reach the site tomorrow, or early this morning, I should say. Today's already Thursday. So it's a race against time. There's so little breathable air left in the ship. They said it's probably at some point this morning they're going to run out of air, and that's critical, unfortunately. I don't know if there's any other way that they could have maybe MacGyvered the systems on board, um, to stretch this out to get any kind of extra air time. It's really it's really down to the wire now. Let's see, I'm just reading the chat. Unfortunately, with my eyesight, I gotta look closer at it here. Ah, yeah, the Pakistani on board. Hmm. His son, apparently one of the richest families in Pakistan. This man, and he brought his son on board with him, to go on this expedition. Maybe because it left on Father's Day. I don't know if they celebrate Father's Day though. I'm not sure if they have the same kind of calendars. But you imagine that, that's that turned into a bad Father's Day gift. Why is there no contact by radio or phone? Okay, that is a question. We were talking about it the other night. They said, from what I've been hearing, the mainstream news, they were saying that the radio waves cannot travel underwater very far. They were saying there was a way they could send something like a text message if this submersible was right under the support vessel. And that would only work down to a certain depth. Once you get past like I'm thinking like 2,000 feet. And this is going down to over 10,000 feet to the Titanic. Radio communications do not work through the water. And it could even be shorter than that. I'm not exactly sure how they were sending the text message. Maybe it was even done through sonar. Um, the other night, one of the chats was saying that the thing did have radio communication, but the captain would shut it off during these expeditions so it wouldn't be distracting. I don't, that's unconfirmed, and it doesn't make much sense because nobody has been saying anything about capability like that. Let's see. They are under 1,300 feet. They are 1,300 feet underwater. Well, maybe that's for the radio transmission. I think if this craft is underwater right now, my theory is it's either all the way down on the bottom, or if it was floating, I think they would have found it, because it must have some kind of a beacon on it. With the cheapness of LEDs now, you could have a strobe LED that's very bright and uses very little power, with its own emergency like battery even. And if it came up to the surface, you can also have, it's called an EPIRB. And even for a recreational boater such as myself, I have a 25-foot boat and a power boat, and I'm technically a captain with my own vessel. You can buy these emergency beacons, and the EPIRB will even send out off a radio wave and locate your vessel. I believe there's even one that works with satellite for a very low. Well, it's a lot of money for a small guy like me that has a recreational vessel, but it's a cheap price for a submarine expedition company that's building something crazy like this. If it made it to the surface, I would imagine they would have that technology and they would have been able to find it. So my theory is that it is probably sitting on the bottom. Let's see here. Okay, so the noises this morning, it sounded encouraging. They were saying they were hearing a noise like somebody was banging on the hull at a certain interval. That first they said every half hour, and as I said before, the whole problem is unless you can time it, and I would imagine they have a watch on board. Somebody must have a watch. There must be a clock on board if they're conscious, and they are actually creating the banging on the hull. You have to time it at a specific interval, because that's the only way for rescuers to know that the sounds are being created by humans, by the survivors. If you do it at random times, that's going to be less convincing to the rescuers that is just noise. Or they were saying it could even be, unfortunately, later this afternoon, they said, wait a minute, there's noise being created by the Titanic wreck itself, believe it or not. As ocean currents go by and things move on the wreckage, the wreck actually might creak and make noises. And I just read the debris field itself can cause the sonar that they're sending down, apparently. I would think it would just be a listening mic, but maybe they're also doing sonar from other ships and can cause that sonar to bounce around and actually create noises that sound like somebody's tapping. So that information we just found out this evening. So these ships are meeting up, and we think maybe based on them convening to one location, there's speculation that they might have found where the sub is located, and the rescue ships are teaming up, possibly to lower down cables or do like a group effort. Now, this is speculation. Unfortunately, I wish this was more concrete, and we will find out probably tomorrow if this speculation was true. Let's see here. Okay, so the latest information I can tell you as of tonight, our super late past midnight update. Okay, the latest information, it said the banging noise likely to be debris from Titanic, not the missing sub, according to a sonar expert. That's unfortunate. I mean, he thinks the bang noise is detected by rescue crews searching for the submersible that disappeared. It's likely debris. Let's see here. The U.S. Coast Guard's pursuit of the noise, which some experts believe indicates that the 5-person crew is still alive. This professor from Syracuse University, he thinks it's wishful thinking. Well, that's kind of a bold speculation for that professor to make. Not only bold, but also dismal. I don't know if I would trust. I'm not going to give the guy's name because I really don't know if I would trust him. Professor from Syracuse University. Since when does Syracuse University know about? Well, he might know a lot about sonar, but that's a upstate university in New York, and it's nowhere near the ocean. Perhaps the Great Lakes, but okay. Now here's how this works. These bang noises were detected by a Canadian P-3 aircraft and continued. They were detected on Tuesday. They continued again on Wednesday. In response, the Coast Guard relocated its remotely operated vehicles to explore the noise. He would not be shocked if the noise does not lead rescuers to the Titan submersible. There's a possibility that the sounds are bouncing around the debris. And this was what I was talking about, the sonar that maybe other ships are using, other searchers. He said it's a complicated echo. It's not just bouncing off one thing, it's bouncing off a bunch of things. And it's like dropping a marble into a tin can. It's rattling around. And that would help confuse the exact location of where it's coming from. Let's see, we have some more comments here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this whole thing, Like, it's very unfortunate, and we're hoping that they can do something. We got, from what I understand, only until this morning, later this morning, they think the window of opportunity is going to shut around, I heard even as early as 6 a.m. in the morning. Um, Hopefully they can stretch it out a little bit longer. The bad part is this uh, this special Navy sub that actually recovered a fighter jet that had crashed and sank into the ocean way over by somewhere in the Pacific by China. This special Navy submersible that can go down 20,000 feet, and it attached a cable to the fighter jet. I heard they had a problem getting a special ship to operate it because you have to have the real system or the winch that will lower it down. I assume that's a big part of it. I heard it was in Newfoundland today, St. John's, and it will not get there until later this morning. So that part is really unfortunate. If they can't get the damn thing there that they need, well, that oxygen supply is still going. All right, let's see here. This guy amperage says 7 a.m. Eastern time, and I'm in the Eastern time zone here in New York. Um, let's see. I heard they have oxygen until 7 a.m., but that's UK time, so about, oh, in 2.5 hours it might run out. That's I don't know, unless these three ships that are in the area, the French ship Atalante, the Horizon Arctic, and a few more ships, they seem to be convening in one spot, and it was about 40 miles from the wreckage. If they have some kind of information where the sub is and they can get there, I mean, they could get there pretty fast, and the sub might not be right at the wreck site. It could have drifted. Okay, amperage says when the oxygen is supposed to run out. Oh, I honestly don't see them finding this sub for months or even a year. That's just my opinion. It's beyond a needle in a haystack. Well, there is one thing that I heard which gives me hope that this sub may in fact be recovered quickly. And that is, we were discussing it actually last night. Apparently, it has lead weights that are very heavy ballast attached to this thing. And they're put on with a special adhesive that dissolves in the water after a certain amount of time. And I believe the first reports I got about it said it was like within 12 hours of the emergency oxygen running out. These weights are supposed to fall off the vessel, the submersible, and it will automatically float it back to the surface, whether or not the crew is even conscious. This process is supposed to be like a fail-safe, a foolproof retrieval system for this sub. And the CEO of I believe it's called Ocean Gate. This guy Stockton Rush. He's on interviews. There's videos posted about him, including him giving a tour of the sub a little bit and talking about it from the prior months and years. And he's very confident in this craft. He said it has like, I heard 7 redundant systems that would bring you back up in case something happened. And I give the guy credit. He's sampling his own product. He is on board this sub as we speak. He's one of the guys that went down there, along with another gentleman that was French, and the Frenchman is like the expert pilot. He had been down. He had done 37 dives to the Titanic site since 1987. And he recovered, he assisted in the recovery of around 5,000 artifacts from Titanic. So this guy should be like the master. There was an interesting thing I heard today about how when they were recovering all these artifacts from Titanic, and at one point they floated up apparently a large piece of the Titanic deck. And what they actually used to float it up, I heard it was a liquid that they pumped into a bag, a liquid lighter than water, such as, if you know, like oil floats on top of water. And that they attached the bags to the wreckage. And then I don't know if they pumped this liquid in from that would be a hell of a tube going 2 miles down. If they had the liquid on board a surface vessel, it has to be put in at an enormous pressure, due to the high pressures involved, with a depth of 12,500 feet. And I believe that's why they couldn't simply just use something like air to fill the bag up. Now, this is not confirmed, and I don't see why they wouldn't. Well, I guess the air, here's the thing, if you fill a bag with compressed air at that depth, it's under so much pressure. As it comes to the surface, the air keeps expanding, and it would actually blow the bag up, and it would rupture. You would have to somehow keep venting air out of the bag. So that is plausible that they use a special liquid. All right, let's see what comments we have here. If it's stuck or trapped with something, even without the weights, it won't come up. That's, yeah. If it's underneath part of the wreckage. Also, if it's imploded or got crushed by the pressure, it will stay down there. Well, this is unfortunately, it dawned on me when we were talking about this the other night. If the weights come off this thing, it's relying on buoyancy, having this submersible filled with air, gas, in other words, much lighter than water, to raise it up like a hot air balloon would go up. And the problem is, if you have the slightest leak in that hull, because of the immense water pressure down there, it's going to be like a power washer nozzle. If you've run a power washer and you look at how small the orifice is on those power washer nozzles, Okay, those things are only putting like 2,000 psi through the nozzle, maybe even lower than that. It might only be about 1,000. You see how much water comes out through the tiniest little hole. I can only imagine how much would come out at those depths, and then the pressure may even be more than a power washer. So unfortunately, if something weird happened where the vessel filled with water, when the weights come off, I don't believe it would be able to float. It's going to be way too heavy. It's a made out of metal and heavy duty construction materials. Part of it, I think, is carbon fiber, but still, that doesn't float unless you have like air inside it, some kind of bubble. Um, let's see what we have here. Okay, Alligator 2 says, my son had a realistic toy with removable weights. You would think this thing would have a few safety features and that they planned a route to stay in continuous contact. Well, here's the problem. The radio transmission from the support vessel to this sub, apparently, I don't know if anyone here would know about it, but the consensus is that you're not able to send radio waves through the water. Um, I kind of think this is true because during World War II, where you have a lot of submarine, like the dawn of the submarine age, basically the modern submarine age, I remember watching. I'm like a buff on a lot of these World War II movies, and from what I remember, anytime they needed to transmit a radio message, the sub would have to go to the surface, and then they would put up an antenna, and they could broadcast it. When they were underwater, the only thing they used was sonar, and the sonar is basically like they would have a sonar operator with a headset on, and it is underwater microphone. You can hear weird noises in the water, such as the propellers on a ship or a submarine, vibration from engines running on ships and submarines. And even I've seen movies where they took the sub way down and they were hiding from depth charges and surface vessels. And they told the crew on board the sub, you cannot even talk. Everyone had to stay completely quiet because they said the sonar, the sounds from the vessel would actually transmit into the water, and a surface vessel or another submarine could actually possibly hear people talking on board the sub. And using that information, they could locate where the sub was if they were going to drop depth charges. So it makes it credible to me that you can't use like a two-way radio communication with a sub like this. Now, it would be a different story, of course, if this sub was tethered and it had a cable going to it, because they could, in fact, have wires built into the cable that would enable you to send communication back and forth to the sub. So I think the bottom line is these guys, the Navy used a tether system for their sub that went down 20,000 feet. The writings on the wall, all points indicate that this tourist expedition group, Ocean Gate, they really should have used a tether system. Um, at least you'd be, even if something weird happened, you'd be able to, the support vessel would be able to talk with them, and you would have, you'd have audio as to what's going on in the sub. Um, Now I saw a comment here about the pressure. Let me see if I can find one. Okay, amperage says the pressure is around 385 times greater than land. Constant pressure on that sub. It's been down there since Sunday morning. Yes, the immense pressure. One of the guys talking about the hull, which apparently was NASA helped design it has to stay perfectly circular. That shape enables it to hold up under the immense pressure. If you have a flaw in that hull and part of it like deflects, it's going to immediately cause the thing to be too weak to to stay structurally sound, and it will, in fact, it's called an implosion. It will, the sea pressure will press it in. Hopefully that did not happen. That's why we were encouraged when we heard the noise, the tapping noises or bang noises earlier today when there were reports of that. That would mean that the hull is still intact. It's good. But now with this other information about the echoes, we just don't know. Let's see if I can pronounce this. Ketero says, can't wait for year 2123 in the future when people will get in a submarine to watch 5 drowned people who paid 250,000 off. Can you imagine that? If the submarine itself becomes a tourist, part of the Titanic experience, so to speak. If it's down there, like right next to Titanic, that would be uh, that's a tough thing right there. I mean, you imagine that. That's one of the things we were saying in the live cast yesterday. This guy, the Frenchman on board, Paul Henry, that's his first names. I'm not going to attempt his last name. Paul Henry, he is the expert that had the 37 dives to Titanic, and he helped recovering 5,000 artifacts from the wreckage. Um, this is kind of like, people were saying it's kind of like Indiana Jones, or you take something from a site like that, and the question is, are you kind of jinxing yourself? You remove artifacts from the site. Will the site reclaim you in revenge for taking artifacts from it? I mean, this is unbelievable. Let's see what we have here. Channel 7 says, what do you think the chances are of their survival? I'm assuming low, but who knows? Yeah, it's anyone's guess. These people are either going to miraculously, if they can raise the craft up, if those support ships that are headed over right now, convening by the site, if they know where this thing is right now as we speak, these guys are either going to miraculously be climbing out of this vessel when they unbolt the hatch tomorrow morning, probably. They're either going to climb out of it and be on the, all over the news first thing in the morning, or the situation is going to become grave. And I don't know how much longer into the day tomorrow the search for this thing will become a, what do they call, a recovery operation and not a rescue, to find out what happened to the sub and see if they can find this thing. Yes, Dan says the radio, or he's addressing me, only works in the air, radio waves. Amperage, if there's a leak in that sub, they would be either turned into paste or crushed to death. Unfortunately, it's bad news. When you are at those depths, water, the reason why you don't have divers going down to the site is because the human body can't take, you're pressurizing everything with your body when you go underwater. And the deeper you get, what happens is even the air in your lungs, if you're breathing with an air tank, I can tell you this much, I've done a little bit of diving. I'm no expert on it. I know a lot about it. I know how it works, but I'm not Jacques Cousteau. I'm more of an armchair scuba man. The air in the tank is under a lot of pressure. The dive tanks have, I believe they have around 2,000 pounds per square inch PSI in the tanks. They have to have a special high pressure regulator that lowers the pressure way down. And the part you put in your mouth, you've seen it has like a valve on it. That's a special valve that works with the lower pressure from the regulator. And when you breathe in, your lungs are making a vacuum. It allows air from the tank to come into your lung. And then when you breathe out, it vents the air outside through the water. The thing is, when you do diving, I know this much. If you go down deep, and this is microscopic compared to this Titanic thing. If you go down like 50 feet even underwater, if you're breathing with an air tank, right? If you want to come back to the surface, you have to be really careful. You have to exhale. And I guess if you do it slowly, it will be kind of automatic because you're breathing in and out. But I've been told you cannot hold your breath and go up to the surface. You got to let air out. Especially this would happen in an emergency if your regulator failed, or the hose going to the air tank failed, and all of a sudden you didn't have any air coming, new air, oxygen coming from the tank, new air. You had to scrap that, make a rapid ascent up to the surface. This would definitely come to play. As you ascend, you have to breathe out air. The air in your lungs will expand. Your body's been under high water pressure. You come up to the surface, your lungs will blow up if you don't breathe air out. It will do damage. And when you're underwater at a deep depth, because of all that pressure, and you're breathing from like the air tank or whatnot, the air we breathe has, believe it or not, it's mostly nitrogen. There are lesser quantities of oxygen, carbon dioxide, some other small amounts of gases, various gases in the air we breathe. So when you're underwater, you're breathing a lot of nitrogen that's apparently goes into your system. And this thing called the bends. You can get that if you surface too quickly because the nitrogen that's in your system, I guess it dissolves into your bloodstream. When you release that pressure as you're coming up, it will actually start to boil. It will turn back into a gas inside your body. And that's what causes the bends. So uh, this stuff is not for the faint of heart. Even guys going down 200 feet, 100 feet diving, that's not easy to do. Once you go deeper than that, the real deep, hardcore divers, they actually use a mixture of helium, I believe, maybe instead of the nitrogen to help prevent that from happening. And that's why if someone comes up fast and they get this bends condition, they put them in that hyperbaric chamber. That thing is then pressurized with air. They're in there, it's pressurized, slowly pressurized up to try to put the nitrogen back into, dissolve it back in their blood instead of having gas in their system. That's my understanding of it. Let's see what kind of comments we have here. Let's see. If they find the sub with them not alive, will they be able to figure out what happened? If, well, if the sub is intact, that will mean that the passengers will 100%, their bodies will be there, and they will be able to figure out how they passed away. And if they have the actual craft, there will be evidence as to what happened to the craft. If the people are found inside the craft and the craft wasn't compromised, the submersible has air inside, I imagine they would be able to do forensics on the bodies and figure out why the people were not, if they passed out or something weird happened because of possibly the air inside the sub. Something weird like that happened. I think we will have an answer if they found the craft. The other thing is, as I mentioned about these emergency weights coming off the craft after so many hours, if the craft is in one piece and it's the middle of it has air in it, the hull has air in it, when those weights come off, this thing should be right at the surface in a matter of probably only 2 or 3 hours at the most. It will just go right up. The trip itself, they said it took about, originally, this thing was an 8-hour expedition. It took about 2 to 3 hours to get down there. Then they probably had like 2 hours to explore down there. And then it took another 2 or 3 hours to come up. I guess they do it very slowly. Maybe it's less stress on the hull if they do it that way. Let's see what we got here. Dan says, I heard the CEO didn't want it to be tethered because it interrupted his experience constantly. Terrible decision. Yeah, well, I'm sure he's regretting it now. The other thing I just wonder, though, is maybe it's too expensive to do a tethered submersible. I mean, the Navy has one, but the Navy has a huge budget. And maybe this group doing the tour because if you think about it, it's a couple miles the tether would have to be. Then if the tether has communication lines or wires built into it, it goes on a reel, like a giant winch on the ship. It's got to be super heavy duty if it, with hydraulic motors to run it, a whole system, if you want it to have enough strength to bring the thing back up in an emergency. Then, if there's communication cables on it, you have to have some kind of a system that the cables in the middle of the spool have like brushes and special contacts as the thing turns so that it keeps the cables the transmission connected. So something like that, you can see how it would be complicated. And if there was a way to do it without using all that, I imagine it would be a substantial savings. And this guy, he thought, the CEO himself, Stockton Rush, he came on in his videos over the past year, and he said this thing has all these redundant systems. He said it will get to the surface if something happens. He seemed confident, and he must have been confident if he went on this expedition, and he's down on it. Let's see. You couldn't pay me 250,000 or any amount to go down there. Yeah, 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 I agree with that. I mean, you may have had a different opinion before this became a huge thing on the news and uh, the trouble happened. You may have thought differently about it. I mean, people did go up in the Blue Origin and the Virgin Galactic, the space flights where you could be an astronaut, a way of buying your way to be an astronaut. But yeah, I agree with, as for me, I would not do that. I know it's probably an amazing experience, but if you think about it from a logical standpoint, this sub has a small porthole at one end of it that's yay big, just enough for someone to like look out. One person at a time has to take turns looking, I don't believe. It doesn't have any other viewing ports. So you're down there with 5 people, you have to keep taking turns looking out. And keep in mind, down there it's totally dark. The only thing you're going to see is what's illuminated with an artificial light on board this craft. It's a pretty scary prospect, but my point being is, with all the technology we have now, especially even stuff when they first found this in 1987, I mean, or in the 80s, they didn't have the video technology that they have now. I believe they did have pretty good film, traditional movie film that would be somewhat like high def video. But the thing is, with real film, the problem with that stuff is it's not really good in low light conditions. Um, However, now with the modern video technology, and you have 4K, and they even have 8K, they keep getting it better and better. You could film the whole thing around Titanic, and the average guy like me, I can watch this on a very good screen, and essentially I've got the same quality view. I'm going to see the exact same thing in detail the same kind of detail that these paying customers going down all the way to the site. I mean, they're really not going to see. I don't think they're going to be able to see anything different, anything clearer than what a good video camera can do now. They even can do it in 3D. So, they have the IMAX theater. They probably have already done it. You could have a 3D movie going around this wreckage, and you could see it, everything that you need to see safely with that type of system. And the same with the Blue Origin and the guys going up with the rocket. I mean, you're really not going to see anything anything different than someone on the ground's going to be able to view on a good screen. So is it really worth the risk? I mean, some people will argue it's the experience. They might be right. There's something magical about being in space or under the ocean, down at these sites. And one of the guys that is on this craft, the British billionaire, I found out that I keep this guy's name Hamish. Is it Hamish? I keep having trouble with his name. Hamish Harding. He had he's been a real adventurer. He's in Guinness Book of Records. He went down to the Marianas Trench, the bottom of the ocean. He has been down there already. So maybe he figured Titanic, he already did it, and he obviously got back okay from that. Maybe he figured the Titanic thing would be a cakewalk. Let's see what the comments say here. Russia probably has subs close by. Too bad we haven't been friendly. This is their specialty. Alligator too. Yeah, I wonder about that. I heard they were saying a few days ago that, or just yesterday, that apparently Russia has done something like this, a tourist sub dive to the Titanic. I heard something about that they had done many of these dives down to view Titanic. And I'm not sure what kind of craft they were using. And you're right, if they had that craft, if that craft is available and they could get it over to the site, maybe that would help be able to find this thing. And it's basically that one Navy vessel that can go down to 20,000 feet. It was in Newfoundland earlier today, St. John's, Newfoundland. It's a race against time getting that thing out to the site. And apparently it's on the way out as we speak. Okay, let's see here. What do we have? Okay, I don't think it will become an attraction. If they find it in the future, they'll recover it for sure. Well, I guess since this craft is only 22 feet long, it probably is something they could definitely, once they find it, they could definitely get it back to the surface. However, well, I guess they'll probably recover it no matter what, but if the craft, yeah, if the craft is not in one piece or something catastrophic happened to the craft, Um, and there's pieces in that area. The question is, do they recover those pieces, or is that like a considered like a memorial, or like a grave site like Titanic, and you wouldn't disturb it? I don't know. The They probably would want to find out what happened if they could bring the stuff to the surface. Let's see here. Lucas says cell phones could have messages on them if the submersible is still intact. That's true. I don't know if they would allow these passengers to bring a cell phone um, on this expedition, because they wouldn't be able to work if they're underwater, other than possibly using it as a camera to take pictures. Um, I don't know about this. I think what these guys would have, being that these guys are all, they're spending $250,000. I would imagine they would have some kind of high end video camera that they wanted to film with. Um, Possibly, if the thing is found, they may have been able to film themselves make a video up of themselves, and they could explain what happened or what they were experiencing. Um, there is a possibility of that if that was saved on a camera. Um, if you have the scenario possibly where if you have a memory card from a camera, and say the thing filled with water or something weird happened, the card may in fact still be usable if it's solid state. I can tell you that I had a digital camera in my pocket when I was launching my boat a few years ago, and it had a SD card on it. And I made stupid mistake of I shoved the boat off at the boat ramp trailer, and trying to balance everything, I put the camera in my pocket, and when the boat started drifting off, I think my friend was helping me, and he dropped a line in the water, and I was afraid of losing the boat or having it float into once the current grabs it and it goes out, you're not going to be able to get it. So I panicked. I jumped into the water to grab onto the boat. The camera went under salt water, and it was under just for a few minutes. I took it out, and it was trashed. The camera was shot, um, but I took the memory card out, and I was able to get the pictures off of the memory card from that camera. So I think that's definitely a viable possibility. And I imagine they definitely would have cameras or video um, with them. They probably each would have possibly had their own camera. Let's see what's going on here. Mm, mm, mm. Okay, here we go. Yeah, does the sub have a toilet? Channel 7 asks. Okay, it does. I know this for a fact. I did hear even I think when the guy gave the tour of it, the Stockton Rush, he showed something about it has a toilet on board with a little compartment. Um, Keep in mind, when everything goes as planned, this expedition takes 8 hours. So definitely they're going to need to use the bathroom. And there is a toilet on board. However, I don't know how much capacity that toilet has. I don't know if it's designed for working, a couple of days like this. Um, let's see what they say here. Yeah, I would imagine if the toilet is working, it would be full. Or if they had one, Danielle says. Bang sounds. Okay, that's the question. They don't know 100% what the bang sounds were. They heard them earlier today or late last night and early today or throughout the day, but it was encouraging. But then later tonight, they said they think it may be sonar bouncing off debris around Titanic or the Titanic itself with ocean currents going by. You have a lot of metal there, and it could creak or make noise as ocean currents move things on it. Ah, this guy says, Amperage says on the news that the only toilet is literally a bag and a little curtain for privacy. Ah, that would not surprise me considering how small the sub is. Stockton, the CEO guy who's on it, he showed you have to sit down on the floor of this thing. The passengers take their shoes off. You're sitting there with your legs crossed right on the floor. There is no seat. This thing is it's a very small compartment in there. Um, let's see. Hmm. Well, these guys are in an unfortunate situation right now. That's for sure. Let's see. Ashley says, "What if they don't survive and the banging stops? Do you think they will still be able to find the sub to see what happened to it?" Well, there is one problem. Reports were that the bottom of the sea where this wreckage is extremely muddy. It's like a soft mud. And if this thing if it went down fast and it hit the mud, it could have essentially almost like buried itself into the mud. Um, so that's basically the determining factor, I believe, for finding this. I mean, if it turns into a recovery effort, if this thing is like sitting on the surface on the bottom of the sea and it hasn't sunk into the mud, I would imagine they know pretty much where the thing was going, and I'd say there's a very good chance they will find it once they get these underwater, the Navy submersible over there. And they have other things called ROVs, which are remote operated vehicles that can go down. They're much smaller, and I believe those can go down to these depths, but there's nobody on board them. It's just for doing video. They should be able to find it. If the only catch is if ocean currents move this thing, if somehow it was floating and it didn't go all the way down to the bottom, it could be moved by ocean current. And I did hear reports that there are strong ocean currents where this Titanic wreckage sits. Let's see here. Let's see here. I would imagine if they survived, they would develop severe claustrophobia. Yeah, these guys, so you got to keep in mind, these guys that are on this are not your normal tourists. These guys have done extreme adventure before. They've, I believe, the British billionaire, he had already gone up on the Blue Origin rocket, which is small. He had gone up to space on that thing. He had gone down to Marianas Trench. Um, I imagine that they are hardcore enough that they might be able to handle the claustrophobic containment of this thing. I mean, you'd have to do that anyway. If you were gonna go down on one of these things, and the voyage is usually 8 hours, I imagine they would do some kind of a test where you go in one of these on the surface. They put you in this thing, and you wait, you stay in it for 8 hours to make sure you're okay with it, because once they put the hatch on and you're locked into this thing, you can't have people in it that are going to have panic and claustrophobia once they get underway. Otherwise, the whole thing would have to be, you'd have to scrap the mission and start all over again, and that's very expensive. Um, the son, he must be terrified. Um, I think the guy is a grown man. I believe I read he was at least like 18. I don't think he is I don't think he's a child. Um, so maybe the guy, let's face it, anyone doing this has to have nerves of steel. I don't know anybody that would be game for going into a vessel like this and then having a hatch bolted shut like that. I think they would. I don't know if any of my friends would go for this. If said I'm going to give you a gift certificate to go into this thing, to go down to see Titanic, I really don't know if anyone would go for it. You'd have to have a friend that's like fearless and has like nerves of steel. Um, it's not for the average person. I mean, even the space flight, the Blue Origin and stuff like that. I mean, you have to be really hardcore to do that. It's not your normal airplane flight. When it goes up, it does certain things. There's a lot of G forces on your body, and it's not something, I don't think those are for anybody that is basically a civilian. You'd have to be almost like a military person to go on that. Um, yeah, I hope that they are not suffering for sure. I mean, if these guys make it out of here, they're going to be like, it's not the way that I would want to become a hero, or legendary. Um, they will be legendary if they appear tomorrow and they are in good shape or they survive this thing. Um, it's going to be some story. So let me see. Is there anything? Oh, here's the other thing that I just found this evening. They said that if they are down by the bottom of the sea, unfortunately, um, a retired U.S. Navy submarine captain described the situation that the crew may be facing freezing cold conditions. Apparently, the water at those depths down there in this area is very cold. And they're obviously going to be thirsty and hungry. He says the water surrounding the ship is at freezing or slightly below. Yeah, the moisture from breathing is going to form like frost on the inside of the ship. You would think there'd be some kind of well, it's probably all based on electric. If you have electric capacity, why hasn't it surfaced? I was going to say you would think there must be a heating system, a climate control system on this thing. Yeah, I don't know how these guys are doing it if they are alive waiting for a rescue. I really don't know. The other thing, the other problem is, which they've been saying, the way that the hatch is put on, and I speculate it's for structural reasons. It's bolted on from the outside of the vessel. So even if they get to the surface, people have said you can't, they may be at the surface and they can't get out of the vessel because the hatch, you need people on the outside to unbolt it. That's kind of you would think there'd be a way that they could have designed it with some kind of emergency release. But again, I was also saying if it has an LED, a strobe on it, even once you got to the surface, if you have a flashing strobe at nighttime, if you're on the water, if it's a clear night, you'd be able to see that thing for about 20 miles. And then the curvature of the earth, that's about the distance you can see from a ship before the curvature blocks it. But if you have a few ships in there covering a large area there, if it came on the surface with a beacon light, I have a feeling they would find it real fast. Um, yeah, from my understanding, it's the Pakistani guy has a son on board who's around 18. Oh, okay. Dan Googled it. He said it's the son is 19. That's good. That the kid, it's not like a kid. Like, that would be far worse. I mean, um, yeah, possibly they have some kind of outfit on that will help insulate them or keep them warm a little bit at least. I heard they had to before going on the expedition, they had to practice putting on this special outfit that may be, in fact, some kind of survival suit. Yep. The question is about the power. Now, yeah, there's only one window, and it's made out of a plexiglass type of. Um, I'm sure it's better than just plexiglass, but it's real thick. That's that one window at the end of the ship that they can view out of. It's like a porthole. So I don't believe they can break that. And some people are saying that if they did surface, which we haven't really gotten a clear answer about, would there be, even if they couldn't open the hatch, would there be a way that they could ventilate the capsule uh, to bring in breathing air and like get the stale air out of the capsule? Um, I haven't heard anything about that. And with all these news reports, you would think that would have come up. Um, so right now, we are basically in limbo, and we will see. I mean, that at this point in the game, it's coming up on. Oh wow, we went past 1 a.m. That was fast. 2:25, 3:25, 4:25, 5:25, 6:25. There may in fact only be about 5 hours left, based on what I've heard. And I heard around 6 a.m. tomorrow, or today actually, this morning. Uh, they might not, that might be like the reasonable estimate of the oxygen. Um, I hope these ships can do something. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to wrap this live stream up, and I'll do another update tomorrow, another live stream. Uh, we'll see what's going on with this thing tomorrow. Possibly during the morning if there's something happens, or tomorrow evening or afternoon. So if you subscribe to the channel, which is free, there's some kind of notification bell that will, I believe if you do that, you'll be alerted if I put up a live stream. Because the problem is, based on the way the news media works with the algorithms or YouTube, I noticed that I can't even find my own live stream or my own videos about this topic. I was trying to show one of my friends today. I even put in the name of my channel and everything on his phone. Wouldn't even come up. So it's basically like blocked out, which is unfortunate that you want to find as much information as you can. But if you subscribe to the channel, you'll be notified then. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to find. And hopefully now I know more about the live stream, and I'll be able to get it going more efficiently or quicker. And I know more of the features now with it. So, all right, guys, I guess I'm going to sign off, and we're going to hope for the best. I'll see if there's anything on Coast to Coast, which is broadcasting now on AM. Have a good night, and let's keep our fingers crossed for some good news tomorrow.